Attention Upper East subscribers, Film Fatales here, your one and only source for the truth behind the scandalous reception of a certain new outsider. Spotted, Gossip Girl's little sis gracing our screens last Thursday evening. Let's see what the public has to say about this, shall we? The new Gossip Girl has finally arrived, and predictably, critics were not happy. I saw these bad reviews calling the reboot clumsy, drab, and even a complete failure, and I braced for the worst. The best I could hope was that maybe it would be Riverdale level bad, not the best writing.
A Bughead kiss, right now in the present, might be precisely what it takes to save a future Bughead from imploding.
But still pretty entertaining to watch. So I settled in, prepared for the worst, and I have to say, I liked it. For anyone who doesn't know what it's about, it's set in the same world of the original Gossip Girl without the original cast. It boasts Joshua Safran, the showrunner from the previous Gossip Girl, as its showrunner. We follow new girl Zoya as she moves from Buffalo to New York City to attend the prestigious Constance Billard on a scholarship. There, she meets her long-lost sister and Queen Bee Julian. Julian is a wildly rich and popular influencer surrounded by similarly wealthy friends. Their young, underpaid teachers set up Gossip Girl in order to enact revenge for the unjust dismissal of their colleagues and teach the rich kids a lesson. The first episode of the reboot balances the nostalgia of the old Gossip Girl without becoming too referential and manages to make the old premise feel fresh and exciting. The new Gossip Girl plays with the established tropes of its predecessor and subverts them. First, we're introduced to Zoya, and though we think this will be our underdog new girl who's pitted against the band of popular kids, it's quickly revealed that Zoya and Julian have been friends for 2 years. Then, Gossip Girl attempts to create a rift between the two with the cheating scandal, but their friendship wins over petty rumors, unlike the original Gossip Girl. However, the biggest subversion of all is that we know from the beginning exactly who Gossip Girl is. Revealing who Gossip Girl is from the get-go was a clever move on the writer's part, as it not only goes against our expectations that it will be yet another mystery, but it also introduces a fresh perspective. It raises the stakes from petty power struggles between friends to workers revolting against those in control. It updates the original blog format to 2021 with a deux moi-esque Instagram account. While I do think teachers bullying their students is an odd narrative choice, especially with the fact that they effectively spread child, I am intrigued as to what direction the show will take. All of these plot points show that the reboot knows its audience. The writers know that we're familiar with the tropes of the original and use this to subvert our expectations. I'm already invested in all the characters and cannot wait to dive into their backstories. Just looking at the cast, it's 10 times more diverse than the original, with queer, non-white, and trans actors. But the characters don't seem like tokens thrown in for bonus points, at least so far. The characters have a good dynamic and feel like they're actually friends. The show's subversions don't stop at its story, however, as it takes the stock character of the rich playboy and gives him a queer twist. From what we've seen, Max Wolf isn't the straightforward party animal and immoral guy that Chuck Bass, his obvious inspiration, was. He's bisexual, raised by 2 dads, and it's hinted that his storyline will involve polyamory, which is already miles beyond the straight playboy stereotype. The update on Blair's minions, the characters of Luna and Monet, have more agency and personality than their predecessors, who felt more like props than people. And even though we've only gotten a taste of what's in store with each character, the storyline hasn't yet felt predictable. It also adds a metatextual element with its casting of Tavi Gevinson, who garnered recognition as a teenager for her blog Style Rookie. The experienced blogger now plays a 20-something woman pretending to be a teenage blogger. The layers. Where the original show glossed over the privilege of its uber-rich main cast, going as far as to trying to convince us that the Humphreys are poor, the reboot has addressed the main character's generational wealth and privilege.
Is it really their fault they inherited power and influence the minute they were born without any examples of how not to abuse it?
While still indulging the audience in the opulence of the Upper East Side with runaway shows and members-only bars. Some people have criticized the glamorization of wealth, but I'll get into that later. Besides that, it does have some social commentary that, unlike in other reboots targeted towards Gen Z, it doesn't feel out of place or like it's pandering to its audience. I think I was most surprised when Obi was heckled for hooking up with a freshman.
With a freshman? That's so gross.
The age difference is obviously gross, and I'm praying that despite the blatant setup, the show won't have us root for a relationship between a 14 and a 17-year-old. Social media is central to the new show, and thankfully the teens text normally, and the references to pop culture feel natural.
Olivia Jade gained followers when her mom went to jail.
The episode was directed by Karina Evans, and in fact, all the episodes were directed by women, and over half were written by women too. In terms of style, the soundtrack, the visuals, and the outfits all hold up. The soundtrack includes Frank Ocean, Ariana Grande, Megan Thee Stallion, and Doja Cat, all artists both the characters and the audience presumably listen to. The cinematography boasts some great composition, and the wardrobe nods to its predecessor's style, particularly with the varying and comically unrealistic uniforms, all the while updating it to 2021. Also huge is that Kristin Bell has returned as the voice of Gossip Girl, and when I heard that first,
"Hello followers, Gossip Girl here,"
I tell you guys, I ascended. From what I've seen, the audience has responded pretty positively to the first episode. Twitter has been flooded with memes and a consensus that though the reboot stays true to the original in some aspects, it doesn't feel like it's leaning too heavily on nostalgia or creating a vapid woke revival in an attempt to appeal to Gen Z. So with a solid first episode and all of this positive reception from audiences, we have to wonder why there's been an onslaught of poor reviews from critics. Critics have long been biased against media that's popular with and targeted towards teenage girls. From One Direction to Twilight, media aimed at teenage girls has been ridiculed over and over again, even when it's wholly undeserving of such negativity. Even TikTok started off as an app predominantly used by young women. Now everyone from Will Smith to Gordon Ramsay are using the app. Teen media has become an obvious punching bag for reviewers, nitpicking flaws and easy targets like Riverdale. When reviews note that the target demographic is young girls, it's usually as a way to emphasize mediocrity. The same can be said of films directed by women. In this article for Refinery 29, Do Movie Critics Have a Female Director Bias Too?, Lauren Levine details the criticism lobbed at Elizabeth Banks's Pitch Perfect 2. Despite being the highest debut ever for a first-time feature director, male or female, and opening number 1 at the box office, critics gave the film lukewarm reviews. Levine writes, "Reviews paid a disproportionate amount of attention to Banks's stylistic and directorial decisions in crafting a lightweight comedy sequel designed to bank off the surprise success of its predecessor." The worth, impact, and success of media directed towards young women is consistently harshly debated and combed through for flaws. The extent of this critical bias only becomes clearer when we look at media directed towards men, which flies by largely unscathed despite its obvious flaws. The root of this issue is that criticism is entirely subjective, and given that the majority of film critics are male, the female critical voice isn't accurately represented. Though this issue is garnering more and more attention, it doesn't change the impact this bias continues to have. Look no further than the Gossip Girl reboot. In terms of Gossip Girl, just look at the disparity between the critic and the audience response on Rotten Tomatoes. I would say the only issues with the show are issues common to TV, the normalized depictions of underage sex and substance use, old actors, and the idea that a 14-year-old girl looks like this and will get into these kind of situations. Besides those, there's maybe a few faults like line of dialogue and rushed storytelling, but nothing that warrants a 30% critic score. There's also criticism that in an age of enormous global disparity of wealth, we shouldn't glamorize wealth and opulence. Robert Lloyd, in his review for the Los Angeles Times, wrote that the show was too aggressively glamorous, as if that's not the point. However, I don't see critics take issue with shows like Succession and Dynasty, all of which revolve around grossly wealthy characters. I know there will be people defending these portrayals of wealth, saying that they're satire, but Gossip Girl is no different. It does not take its subject matter too seriously, and while the reboot contains elements of social commentary, it hasn't lost sight of the cattiness, camp, and drama of the original. To be fair to critics, Gossip Girl is a new show, and sometimes critics are slow to warm to TV shows. Some of them have also seen as many as 4 episodes of the show, and honestly, none of us know where this show is going, so maybe it will crash and burn. But going off the first episode, I for one am hopeful that the new Gossip Girl will continue down the path it's forged for itself thus far. Do I think it will succeed? Well, that's one secret I'll never tell. XOXO, Film Fatales.